We focus tonight on the segment in Parshas Vayigash of Yaakov going down to Mitzrayim, which is the end of chapter 45 and the beginning of chapter 46. So we all know that in the beginning of the Parsha, so Yehuda speaks to Yaakov, Vayigash, I love Yehuda, and speaks to Yosef, and he tells him that he pleads with him, and then Yosef reveals himself. Bring down my father, right? So they go up, and they're nervous because Yaakov's under the impression that Yosef is dead, and to tell an old man such news, right, could be dangerous. So we'll see how the Nitzivim of Hirsch approach. It's a cute little machlok is how they approach the how they told Yaakov about what happened, and then it's fascinating to see the difference between the Nitzivim of Hirsch as far as Yaakov's approach to going down to Mitzrayim, what he thought, what his intention was, and then there was this vision he had. Hashem spoke to him in Beersheba, and things changed. So if Hirsch and the Nitziv both take a very different approach to that, so we'll focus on those two parts of the story of Yaakov coming down. So if you look in the Psukim, in the end of Perek Mem Hey, Pasuk Chaf Hey. We'll just start from there. Vaya'alu mimitzrayim. So the brothers went up from Egypt. Vayavoyu Eretz Canaan. They came to Eretz Canaan. El Yaakov Avihim. Now, as an aside, generally speaking, when the pasuk says they went up to Eretz Canaan to their father Yaakov. Now, generally speaking, order is very important when it comes to the Chumash, when it comes to all of Tanakh. So it says they first came to Eretz Canaan and then to Yaakov. We would have thought that they came to Yaakov first. Yaakov was the reason they're going. You could learn, I guess, that they went to their destination to Yaakov. A simple understanding would be they went to Eretz Canaan, where Yaakov is found. The Netziv says that since they knew they were going to be going down to Egypt, so they already started missing Eretz Yisrael, even before they left. Once a person knows that he's leaving, see, while I have it, I take it for granted. But once it's leaving, then all of a sudden I feel very connected to the place. We had a similar experience just recently 4 months ago with Melbourne. We always comparing, Australia to other countries, and then, as we're getting close to leaving, it's not so bad. It's really not. My wife commented today. My there's the summer, going like summer vacation now is starting there. So some of my daughter's friends sent her a picture of them. You see like the blue sky. Now the sky there is much bluer than it is here. Even on a clear day, it's a real stark blue, and so my wife missed that. When we're there, you take it for granted, but now a person misses it. So, okay, that's the brothers going up. Pasuk Chavav. Ve'yagidu loy leimor, and they told Yaakov to say, Oid Yosef chai, Yosef your son is alive, v'chihu moishel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and he is the ruler of the land of Egypt. Vayafag liboy, ki loy hem min lahem. And he did not, Vayafag liboy, let's leave that untranslated. Well, let's see how I'm curious. The Art Scroll says, his heart rejected it. Okay, interesting. We'll see in the Nitzivim of Hirsch. They don't say either one, I don't think. The Targum says Pagyon. Okay, doesn't really translate that for us. Okay, Vayafig liboy. I'm just going to glance at Rashi for a second. Nechlaf liboy v'halach milahamin. So his heart was like it changed, and it wouldn't believe what they had to say. His heart couldn't, turn towards the what they were saying. Okay, that's what Rashi says. Fine. And they got into more detail. You first tell him Yosef is alive. I don't believe you. And then all the details. And we went down there. And he said this, and and then all of a sudden he started believing it. Yosef lost his oysa. He saw the wagons. And all of a sudden Yaakov comes alive. The Netziv points out on Vatechi, we saw in the past that Chaim, life, can mean one of two things. It can mean a physical life, or it can mean like a spiritual, like a person's alive. He's alive. He's not walking dead. So Vatechi Ruach Yaakov Aviyim, the Netziv says he was physically alive beforehand, but this is more of a spiritual, he got a new, was rejuvenated to say the least. And the last pasuk in the parak says, Vayomer Yisrael, all of a sudden now, his name turns to Yisrael. He's been referred to as Yaakov almost always since Yosef was killed. He thought he was killed. All of a sudden now he goes up to the Darga of Yisrael. Rav, many, great, that's what he's saying. Rav, Oid Yosef b'ni chai, my son is alive. Elcha ver'enu b'terem amos. Let me go down to see him before I die. Now, how do you understand that pasuk? Why is he saying before I die? What's he coming to say there? In other words, I'll make it more specific. Could that be understood as adding a sense of urgency? I mean, he's afraid he's going to die, so let me get there before.
Well, he doesn't know what else is going to happen, and he feels that he's aging.
Right, so he wants to.
Yosef being away made him feel that much older.
Right.
It's painful.
So I think that's how we all read it in the first instance, that he doesn't know what's going to happen, like you're saying, and he wants to make sure he sees his son before he dies. One could understand it also as, okay, before I die, I want to see him. Meaning it's the opposite. He's not rushing down. He's saying, okay, I want to make sure I get there before I die. Now, in the context and the way we would understand a parent away from a child for 20 years, we're going to interpret that to mean I want to get down there because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But from the words, you could understand it also as being, okay, I'll eventually get there. Just before I die, I'll get there. Yeah, exactly. Certain things, certain countries you want to go to before, a person wants to get there eventually. Exactly, in the bucket list. Okay, so that's what happens there. Then, Vayisa Yisrael v'chol asher lo. So Yisrael, again referring to Yaakov Yisrael, he gets up and he starts traveling, takes everything with him. Vayavoy be'era shava. Strange, he goes to Beersheba. Okay, he's making a pit stop on the way down to Mitzrayim. What does he do there? Vayizbach zvachim, he brings zvachim, a certain type of korban. Traditionally, the Avos brought oilus. A korban oil is a korban that the whole thing goes up to Shemaim. Zevach refers to a shlamim. A shlamim is lashon shalom, lashon peace, because Rashi says in Vayikra, Hashem gets the chelik, gets a portion of it. The Kahanim get a portion, and the owner gets a portion. So everyone's happy. It brings shalom. So Yaakov chose to bring a zevach, which is the first time, one of the first times that a zevach, rare times that a zevach was brought. Le'elokei Aviv Yitzchak, to the God of his father Yitzchak. He also had Avraham. For some reason, he's bringing the God of his father Yitzchak bedafka. Vayomer Elokim liYisrael b'maros halayla. Hashem appears to Yaakov in a vision of night, which we'll see is very significant. Vayomer Yaakov, he calls him Yaakov. Twice so far in the past 3 psukim, the pasuk refers to him as Yisrael, and now he's being called Yaakov. Vayomer Hineni, he says, okay, at your service. Vayomer Anochi Akel Elokei Avicha, I am the God of your father. Al tira merda Mitzrayim. Don't be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim. This obviously indicates there was a fear. Meaning, the simple understanding is he's so happy, his son is alive, they're starving to death in Eretz Canaan. Let's go to Mitzrayim and Yosef will take care of me. That's how we would view it. But all of a sudden, the pasuk says Hashem has to tell him, no, don't worry about it, don't be afraid. I'll tira merda Mitzrayim. Ki l'goy gadol asim chasham. I'll make you into a great nation there. Anochi ered imcha. I will go down with you Mitzrayim to Mitzrayim. Vanochi alcha gam aloi. I will take you out as well. And what about the duration of your time there? Yosef yoshis yoder alenecha, and Yosef will place his hands over your eyes, which I guess we would take to mean he'll take care of you. I mean, he's gonna, like a parent, don't worry about it. The child covers the eyes, it'll be fine. Vayakam Yaakov. So now Yaakov gets up mi Beersheva. So until now we had the psukim referring to Yaakov as Yisrael. Then Hashem called him Yaakov. All of a sudden, after this conversation, we'll call it this communication with Hashem. The pasuk refers to Yaakov as Yaakov, not as Yisrael. Vayakam Yaakov mi Beersheva, vayisu bnei Yisrael es Yaakov avihem, and his children carried him, which implies maybe that he lost some of his strength. Right? It wasn't a pleasant. He wasn't happy necessarily with what Hashem.
To go by himself.
Right, but in the beginning it says in pasuk Aleph it says Vayisa Yisrael v'chol asher lo. So he set out with all that he had. It sounds like he's at the head. He's all of a sudden after this encounter in Beersheva. Now his sons are taking him because he doesn't have that much strength. And they bring him down. V'estapam and their children, v'estashem the wives. Ba'agalos asher sholach parah b'alos oisoi, the wagons that Parah sent, and they all go down with all his children. And that's the end of this part of the Sedron. Okay, so if we look at the chart now. So the first section here is breaking the news to Yaakov. How was the news broken? So the pasuk in English says they told him, saying, Yosef is still alive and he's the ruler over the entire land of Egypt. Says the Netziv, it says Vayagidu. If you look back at the pasuk for 1 second, it says Vayagidu loy. They told him Lemor, saying Od Yosef chai. That's an extra word, Vayagidu. Just say Vayoimru loy, and they told him Yosef is alive. What's Vayagidu? And they told him, saying Yosef is alive. It says that it's Vayagidu lahagid, like we know in Lashon HaKodesh, every word means something else. There's vayomer, there's lahagid. So that refers to a clear description of something, right? The brothers were giving him a certain clarity on an Indian. Therefore, it must be that they hinted to Yaakov Avinu that Yosef was alive before they told him in plain terms. That's how the Ramban learns also, that a person's he'll be, if you shock him with something, that could be dangerous. So first they hinted things that didn't make sense to Yaakov. All of a sudden he's confused. And they said, "Oh, Yosef's alive," to try to get him to not to be shocked. The Rav Hirsch says that really, actually, this should be. This got cut off into two for some reason. He could not adjust all at once to the good news. They told him directly that Yosef was alive. So according to Rav Hirsch, they said right away, "Tati, Yosef's alive." They hit him over the head like that right away, and he couldn't adjust to it. Therefore, the next part of the pasuk, his heart stood still. That's how Rav Hirsch translates it. Let's just keep it Rav Hirsch now. Pug, vayafag, means to freeze, to stop moving. Now, it's interesting that Rav Hirsch quotes a pasuk in Eicha 349, Paragimel pasuk memtes, right? Which means to freeze. Rashi quotes the same pasuk when Rashi says, "Nechlaf liboy v'halach milhamin." His heart changed, like he's going back and forth. He couldn't believe them. His heart could not, turn towards what they said. And he quotes the pasuk in Eicha, "Me'ayin hafugos." Okay, so Rav Hirsch and Rashi's a Rishon, Rav Hirsch is an Achron, but they're both quoting the same pasuk but having different understandings. If you go back to the Netziv for a second there in the second column, the Netziv says Pug means to switch, quoting a different pasuk in Eicha, not the pasuk Rashi, means a different pasuk. Pug means to switch. Yaakov's heart was switching back and forth. He was unsure whether to believe them. So the heart represents his belief, we'll call it, and it was going back and forth, unable to know if they're telling the truth. Okay. Yaakov's response to the news. How does Yaakov respond to the news? So he says, Yisrael says, it's too much. Rav, it's too much. Yosef, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. Now we'll see a trend, a consistency, I'll say, in the Netziv and in Rav Hirsch. And I think it comes out like this. It comes out that there's two ways to approach life, right? Two ways to approach Yiddishkeit. For example, they say, there were two Rosh Yeshiva in Volozhin. Right? Volozhin was like the father of all yeshivas. You had Reb Chaim Soloveitchik and the Netziv. Netziv was a Rosh in Volozhin. Now this story is not going to fit with what the Netziv says here, but we're just bringing it out for clarity. The Bachrim in Yeshiva who did not go home for Pesach would stay in Yeshiva and have the Siddharim by the Rosh Yeshiva. Some Bachrim would go to the Netziv, some Bachrim would go to Reb Chaim. And they shared a balcony, meaning there were two apartments, and they had a joint balcony. Now, Reb Chaim's Seder, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik's Seder, was very tense because you had to make sure you had the right amount of mortar, the right amount of matzah, and that everything went properly. You ate things in a certain amount of time, and it was a very scary kind of fearful event to make sure the mitzvahs were fulfilled. And then at the end, when you finished, Baruch Hashem, I think I did a good job, right? That was Reb Chaim's Seder. Whereas the Netziv Seder was full of simcha, and they were also very meticulous, but there was happy, there was singing, there was joy, and a certain, confidence that they fulfilled the mitzvahs properly. So those are two approaches to Yiddishkeit. The Rabbi, the Shua grew up in the young Israel of North Riverdale, of Nachman Cohn. He has this mahalach in Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. He has Rabbi Yochanan, there's a Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan quotes a pasuk that the ideal way of being Oved Hashem, of worshiping Hashem, is with yira, with fear. And Reish Lakish is more with ava. The two of them they're close, they're buddies, they're chavrusas. But they had very different approaches in life. There's the approach of yira and the approach of ava, of simcha. Now, there's no right and no wrong. It's really, people have different personalities. The people who are nervous, the people who are more, laid back, and it's just the truth is, everyone has to have simcha, and Reb Chaim also had simcha. You have to have happiness in life. Some people's simcha is when I make sure that the matzah is the perfect size, and that gives them simcha. Not to an OCD extent, obviously, but, it has to be maintained, but, for example, the Brisker Rav, who was the same way as Reb Chaim, they were very nervous about mitzvahs, during the 67 war, I think it was 67 war, so there were bombs falling all around Yerushalayim, and the Brisker Rav was sitting and learning in a room in his house, in an apartment building, and his kids were begging him to come into the bomb shelter. And he said, I don't want to go, because wherever you go, it's dangerous. If you stay upstairs, so if it's a direct hit, a person's going to die. But if you go into the bomb shelter, so that you won't get killed by a direct hit, but the buildings collapse, a person can be trapped in the rubble for days and die that way also. So he held halachically, there's no advantage to one or the other, so I want to stay here. His kids are crying, Tati, come down. The mother was murdered by the Nazis in Malch Shemam. So he was the father, he never got remarried, he raised the kids. And his daughter's begging him to come down, so he has to listen to it. He goes down. He went down to the bomb shelter, and within the next half hour, a direct hit to his apartment, and his apartment was leveled. Right? So his daughter's all happy that she saved her father's life. So her father said to her, "You're a mazik, so you have to pay for that apartment now, because if I would have been there, it wouldn't have happened." So he loved his children, and his life was his children. His children knew that, and he was able to be like that, with them. It didn't put them off at all, obviously, but so even though he was very obsessive, we'll say, about his kiyum ha-mitzvahs, but when it came to that, he was very calm. That shows he was in control. It wasn't like a neurotic type thing. What gave him simcha in life was being very intense about mitzvahs. And when he felt that there was no inyan in leaving his apartment, he would just stay there. He was relaxed. It wasn't like a paralyzing, psychological state.
Yeah, I would think somebody needs to have both at different moments in their life.
Right. Yeah. So that's, I think, for most of us, we'll call it middle of the road people will say you have doses of both, but then you have people who have predispositions. Beis Shammai is always machmer, Beis Hillel is always mekel. So the Gra says that Beis Shammai's the root of the neshama was that of din, of judgment, and Beis Hillel was that of chesed. So we definitely have predispositions. In the age-old discussion of nature versus nurture, we hold both are true. We hold that people have genetic predispositions, but there's also environment affects a person as well. So there's some people who are more middle of the road, more mild, and people who are more intense. I know a couple who the husband, I know them very well, who the husband is very, much more intense. The wife is very laid back, and it's nice to see them together because then they kind of feed off each other and come to a happy medium. They see each one by themselves is crazy, and together they make a normal entity. That's what my wife tells me. So anyway, so we're going to see this now, and then it's Tzivim Rav Hirsch. We're going to see these two different approaches. So it says in the Tziv. So Yaakov's response was, Yisrael said, "It's too much. Yosef, my son, is alive. I'm going to go down and see him before I die." He returned to the level of Yisrael now that he knows that his son Yosef is alive, and he's not going to see Gehenna, because if he outlives his sons, he was promised he's not going to see Gehenna. He has a new lease on life. We'll say it's called Yisrael. He had no intention to move to Mitzrayim, says the Netziv. He is not moving to Mitzrayim, or even immediately descend now. That's a little redundant. He's not even going to go down now. He has no intention to go down to Eretz Mitzrayim now. That's why he's going to Beersheba for other reasons. Yaakov, it was enough for him knowing that Yosef was alive and he's still a tzaddik, and he fulfilled his obligation as a parent. He did not want to leave Eretz Yisrael, the land most conducive to ruchnius pursuits. He wanted to stay in Eretz Yisrael. So I'll go see Yosef one day before I die. He takes that approach. He's in no rush to leave the Eretz Yisrael. So the next down, Yisrael set out Vayisa Yisrael. He came to Beersheba, offered up korbanos to his father Yitzchak. He was invigorated. He did not need to be carried by his sons anymore. He was going on his own. His intention was to settle in Beersheba. He went to Beersheba with the intention of settling there. Why Beersheba? That's the place where his father was prosperous. That's where he found the Meir Sha'arim. That was in Beersheba. It was a famine year back then, and his crop produced 100-fold what everyone else's crops produced. So that's a place that's conducive to Parnasa. And Yitzchak, the Netziv has an approach to Yitzchak. He represents Parnasa. So you brought a korban shlamim, which is a korban that represents Parnasa. To Elokei Yitzchak of it represents Parnasa. He's in Beersheba. He's doing his ishtalos for Parnasa. And I want to stay in Eretz Yisrael. I don't want to mix with the Nachrim. I want to stay here, protect the Ruchnius. A parent's, it's hard for us to sometimes live with this, but a parent's main job in life is to make sure his kids are on the right path. Whether he sees them or not is a different story. You have children in Eretz Yisrael? No. You don't have children? Okay. But many people have children in different countries, and in Eretz, so they're happy the kid is there. I don't see them all the time, but they're doing the right thing. They're happy with that, and therefore that gives them the chama. So Yaakov is the same way. He doesn't have a need to run now and see Yosef. He's happy to know he's alive and he's a tzaddik. So Hashem speaks. Then what happens? Hashem comes to him in Beersheba in this night vision. Says that this took place in the middle of the day. It was the middle of the day, but in this vision he had of Hashem, it became dark, which indicated that Galus is coming. And the way that Netziv phrases it is that now it's time that Yaakov accepts the yoke of Galus upon himself. Meaning, not just, Yaakov, you're going into Galus. I want you right now to accept your mission in life now. Now, from a humanistic perspective, Yaakov's life, you can argue, is tragic. Meaning, the second he finds out his son, his loved, prized son, is alive, and now he plans to go to Beersheba and, again, Bada, to be by himself, and just, Ruchnis, Vayeshev Yaakov, Pach, a night vision, you're going down to Mitzrayim. Accept that upon yourself. The tzaddikim don't get any rest in this world. The next page, on the other side, let's keep going with the Netziv. Hashem calls him Yaakov, Yaakov. He's no longer referred to as Yisrael, which indicates Yisrael is the Jewish nation existing with Torah, with Tefillah, with Avodah, not being subject to physical nature, to the laws of nature. Hashem is telling Yaakov, you're going down now to Mitzrayim. I'm going to call you Yaakov, not Yisrael. But Hashem promises him not to be scared. The Jews will not lose their identity, their national identity in Eretz Mitzrayim. I'll make you into a big nation there. I will go down with you. I'll come back up with you both physically. I'll bring you out. And spiritually, you're going to end up on a higher level after Mitzrayim. Yosef will place his hand on your eyes. In other words, your desire is to stay separate. Eyes indicate a person's sheaf is desire. Yosef will keep you separate from other nations. And I'm going to create a situation where your nation will be protected. We know what ended up happening was they did assimilate to a large extent. It says in Netziv, they have free choice. Hashem tells Yaakov, I'm going to create for you a situation where they will be isolated. If they choose to mingle, then they choose to mingle. I can't stop that, says Hashem. So then it says, Vayakom Yaakov. After this vision, Yaakov had to get up. Vayakom is a language, it was hard for him to move. And he's called Yaakov. He had to be carried by his children.
Yeah, so he switched from going himself.
Yeah. Vayisa Yisrael to Yaakov being carried. So while he obviously accepted upon himself Hashem's will, you see this is a 180-degree turn from where he wanted to go. And he thought he was going to Beersheba, and now he can relax again. Hashem tells him, you're going down to Mitzrayim. And he would live a life in fear to an extent of what's going to be with my children, what's going to be with my grandchildren. And the Netziv says Yaakov told his sons also. It's going to be relevant for Rav Hirsch. Yaakov told his sons, you're also going down to Mitzrayim, and we're going to be staying there for a long time, and that's it. So according to the Netziv, we see that Yaakov obviously, goes without saying, was at a very high level, and all he cared about was ruchnius. There was no I guess he was misgaber on his natural fatherly instinct to run to see his son if he felt that's at the expense of his ruchnius, of his religion. So he was happy Yosef was alive. I'm going to Beersheba. Pach, Hashem comes and says, it's Galus time. Vayakom Yaakov. He has to, push himself, but he goes because he listens to whatever Hashem says. But it's, again, a tragic episode in Yaakov's life where he thinks he's going this way and all of a sudden he makes a U-turn. Rav Hirsch is a totally different approach to this story. Says Rav Hirsch by Yaakov's response to the news. So Yosef's glory and exalted position above all was above and beyond his expectation. I mean, Yaakov says, Rav, Yosef Nichai, it's a lot. My son is alive. What does it mean it's a lot? That he's alive, I would have been happy with. Just that he's alive. But you're telling me he's the minister, he's basically the king of Egypt. This far exceeds any expectation I had. He's elated, he's so excited. And he says, I want to go down to Mitzrayim right now to live there. And Yosef will take care of me. He goes to Beersheba and he brings the Korban Shlamim. Says Rav Hirsch, a Korban Shlam is a Jewish concept because by the non-Jews, lahavdil, God is over here and this world is over here. And the more you're in this world, the less you're with God. By the Jewish religion, it's fakir. By the Jewish religion, a house is called a mikdash ma'at. Our house is a small base of mikdash. We take a Kadosh Baruch Hu and we bring him into our lives. Yaakov is celebrating the family circle that now is full. He has his family unit back. How do you celebrate that? You bring Hashem into your life. So I have my Korban Shlam where I enjoy it, and the Kohen enjoys it, and Hashem enjoys it. That's why he Dafka brought a Korban Shlamim, to show that he's besimcha with his lot, his new lease on life. Everything is happy, everything is jovial, everything is going great. That is Yaakov. And he goes to Beersheba because that's the place where his father was, and it's a mesugel for Karbanis. He has no intention, he's going down to Mitzrayim, he has no intention to stay in Eretz Yisrael. So then Hashem speaks to him in the visions of night. So until now, says Rav Hirsch, Yaakov is in a very joyous mood and very happy, but the night imagery represents a certain seriousness. Obviously, and Hashem calls him Yaakov, so he chapped that something, serious is about to happen, and he says, how does he respond? Hineni, I am ready for anything you have ordained. Meaning, he understood that his jovial state is going to be tempered now, But whatever you want for me to happen, I fully accept b'simcha. So Hashem tells him, you're going down to Mitzrayim, but do not fear, I'm Hashem, to whom which you just made this joyous offering. Realize, I'm the one who just gave you all this joy, and I'm telling you this is for the best. You will be joyous in this situation as well. The reason why it says Vayakum in the next pasuk that he had to get up, which Rav Hirsch understands like the Netziv as it was difficult, it's because he has to just recover from the news. It just, his whole life plan just changed. So it's not that he was sad or upset. He went there b'simcha, and whatever Hashem gives him, he's always going to be b'simcha with. Just he has to recalibrate, reconfigure his life. The sons are still referred to as Yisrael, indicating that they were not told of these plans. They went down as Bnei Yisrael. They went down thinking we're going down for a short while. They didn't realize the gullus, he didn't tell them. Whereas according to the Netziv, he told the sons. Just interesting that according to Rav Hirsch, he protected his children. There was no need for them to know the fate that awaited them in Mitzrayim. He felt that was unnecessary. Whereas the Netziv felt it was necessary and he told his children. But as you see, this complete difference in approach. Whereas Rav Hirsch, everything is besimcha. Whatever Hashem wants is for the best. And Yosef's alive, and that's great. I want to enjoy my family. And but the Netziv has this overriding, this yira, and what's best for the ruchnius, always being worried about. Now Rav Hirsch also is concerned for ruchnius. But it sounds like he felt the family being together is also good for the ruchnius. So it's, I think, a very telling approach, both in Netziv and Rav Hirsch, which we'll see time and time again as we continue on in the Chumash with their approaches to the same text. Yeah.